Hello, this is Wendy Bialis-Odell, the Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Educational Standards. I am here with Chris Rouleau, Coordinator of Curriculum, to provide you with an overview of work that has been completed this spring and what you can expect for next school year with regard to standards-based instruction and grading and support for teaching and learning. In this presentation, I will share information about the restructuring of support that will be provided to all teachers through the Curriculum, Instruction, and Educational Standards Department beginning next school year. I will also highlight changes that were made to the 2013-14 standards-based grading benchmarks based on feedback received from teachers. Finally, Chris and I will share information about the recent grade level meetings we conducted and the action plans to address many of the concerns teachers have expressed. You will learn what you can expect for next year with regard to new instructional materials and program changes. As you may know, the curriculum department will be restructured next year to better reflect the needs expressed by teachers and the nature of our integrated approach to providing support for standards-based instruction. Historically, our department has been structured around specific curriculum areas. Beginning next year, our structure will be aligned by level, elementary, and secondary. We no longer will have subject area curriculum specialists. Rather, we will have 8 staff development assessment specialists serving the needs of our sites. After budget reductions, we had budget capacity for 6 positions, and our plan was to have 3 positions assigned to elementary sites and 3 assigned to secondary sites. However, thanks to additional funding from student services, 2 additional positions were secured, and the curriculum department was able to hire 8 staff development assessment specialists, 4 for elementary and 4 for secondary. The staff development assessment specialist and the curriculum specialist positions are different. Our current positions serve all K-12 teachers in 1 or more content areas. The new staff development assessment specialists will be clustered around grade bands and assigned to specific sites, where they will support all teachers in all content areas. Their work will be focused on supporting teachers in implementing the curriculum, use of research-based instructional strategies, and assessment development. The specialists will work with each site's principal and staff development team to determine a staff development plan for the school year that aligns site and system staff development priorities. We know the needs of sites and departments vary. We believe that by assigning specialists to sites, we will be able to differentiate professional development in a manner that is meaningful to teachers. And by working collaboratively, the specialists will help share resources and effective instructional practices across content areas and schools. Please be assured that the program improvement process and the content-specific work will continue. Teacher leadership has historically been essential to the success of program improvement and will continue to play an important role. You can expect to see your site's staff development assessment specialist in your building on a regular basis. Our elementary specialists next year will be Robin Gonzalez, Shelley Drake, Tammy Provart, and Sarah Luby Morris. We look forward to working with you in our new structure. The second topic I want to share with you is around the standards-based grading benchmarks. On March 22nd, I sent to you a copy of the revised benchmarks for the 2013-14 school year, along with the standards-based grading continuous improvement plan. I would like to take just a few minutes to review the benchmark information with you. As you know, we have been working with a 3-year implementation plan for standards-based grading. However, based on teacher feedback, we made an adjustment to the 3-year implementation plan and added a 4th year. You will see in the newly revised benchmark document that next year, 2013-14, We will continue to work on current benchmarks without adding any new benchmarks. The specific benchmarks we will continue to work on include academic misconduct, assessments, formative feedback, multiple opportunities, and the 0 to 4 scale. This benchmark specifically relates to grading at the secondary level. We know, however, that through our assessment work, we will address concerns about better defining the elementary 1 through 4 scale as well. All of these benchmarks are highlighted in yellow on the benchmark document. There have also been some language changes to provide greater clarity, and those changes were highlighted in green. The third topic to discuss is feedback from the recent grade level meetings and the action plans to address many of the concerns teachers have expressed. We held meetings with teachers at each grade level, with attendees representing most sites at each meeting. Teachers expressed their needs in the areas of instructional materials, assessments, and other areas such as the desired report card revisions. In the meetings, we heard common themes across all grade levels. Teachers told us that our K-6 report cards need to be revised. Our assessments need to be revised or created. We need to check them for quality and align them across content areas as much as we can. Teachers expressed a desire to have all the assessments more aligned with our instructional materials, and to make it all make sense and be manageable. We know that we have some gaps in instructional materials that need to be addressed, and we heard from every level that a clear scope and sequence for reading language arts is needed. We know that for elementary teachers, the curriculum cycle is in constant motion. As the state changes standards and we learn more about our learners and how to better differentiate instruction, we need to make changes, and those changes may not always align with the 7-year curriculum cycle. We are committed to responding to student needs and at the same time doing it in a way that is supportive of teachers. To that end, in the next several slides, Chris Rouleau will share specifics for your grade level about what you can expect for next year with regard to instructional materials, assessment development, and other curriculum needs.
Hello, kindergarten teachers. Chris Rouleau, I'm here with you now. Before I get too far, I just need to make a little disclaimer. You might hear a little squeak in my voice, and if you've been in a room with me in the last couple of weeks, you'll know this is not new. I'm on week 5, and I was really hoping that I could get beyond it before doing these screencasts, but that was not to be. So please bear with me for a few minutes, as I've got some important information to share. As you've just heard from Wendy, through our grade level meetings, we heard a lot of common themes across grade levels. Right now, however, I'm going to share with you some of the specific things that we heard and some of the plans we have for kindergarten. The first item, however, is one that does apply to everyone, but I will say that this idea surfaced first at our kindergarten meeting, and it is something that we heard then, K through 6, and that everyone is in agreement with. And it has to do with revisions to our report cards. We heard that we need to consider revisions in all areas. We need to take a look at those reporting standards and create a more unified and clear card that has language that's more parent-friendly, but that really reflects grade level learning. In doing this, we'll be able to have fewer standards on the report card for you to mark. We know that the number of standards you have right now, especially as they're aligned to assessment, is huge and overwhelming. One way that we will have fewer standards to mark is by doing some consolidating. We're going to move to overall marks for science, social studies, health, art, and technology literacy. We will still list reporting standards, revised in many cases, on the report card, but we won't expect marks for each of them. You will just give a single summary mark for each of those areas. We also will return pluses and minuses to use with the OS&N marks for social studies and work habits. We plan to have these new report cards drafted by curriculum staff, and then we will turn them back to you for revisions and input before the end of the school year. We'll make those revisions, get them submitted by the end of June, and they will be ready to go for us for next year. In addition to report card changes, there are also some curricular changes that you need to be aware of. Excuse me. This is almost as good as having me real. You get me squeaking and coughing, and maybe drinking my water too. First of all, we are in the first year of adoption for reading language arts next year. We know we've got a lot of needs. We know that you've got some materials needs in particular. But we also have some big needs in core areas. We have heard that bookroom books, classroom libraries, more nonfiction texts are all things you would love to have. At this point, I don't know entirely what our capital budget allocation will be for those because of the other commitments and expenditures that we will have. However, we know it's an important need, and we will do everything we can to be able to support you. In our core adoption, however, there are a couple of things I can tell you with confidence that we will be doing. First of all, we are adopting a new core writing program. We've had a group that has been studying writing programs and has made a recommendation for adoption. 8 years ago when we adopted trophies, the writing program in trophies was intended to be what we followed. But it didn't take too long before teachers said, this really isn't doing the job. There's too much here, can't complete it in the amount of time that we have allotted, and we need something else. And the result is that teachers and buildings have been purchasing materials, making decisions about how to address writing in lieu of having a district-wide program that really worked. We're now in a position where we can purchase a core program and provide training in the fall, and that it is a program everyone will use. It's called Benchmark Writers Workshop, and for those of you who have attended any Steve Dunn trainings in the last couple of years, you'll recognize it and have it feel a little familiar because he is one of the authors of the program. We cannot place the order for the materials until July 1st because it is for next year's budget. However, we'll do everything we can to get those materials in our hands as quickly as possible. And if you are someone who would like to have them in your hands before workshop week, we will be very happy to send emails out when we have those available for you to pick up in advance. Another need that we heard across the board, K6, was that we need a consistent scope and sequence in reading. There is a lot to be taught. We have standards, but really laying those out and identifying what that looks like in scope and sequence format so that we have a guaranteed curriculum for all of our students and so the teachers know clearly what the expectations are would be most helpful. We will have writing teams come to work this summer to do that. The big topic in kindergarten, as we've been discussing all year, is assessment. First of all, there's a document you should receive today that will help you at least with your readers who are on the proficient end of things this spring as you're doing the DRA. What we've done is identified assessments that you can let go of and not do in lieu of doing the DRA when you have a student who is a reader. There are a lot of things that you don't need to assess individually once a student is already reading. And that sheet hopefully will be helpful to you for right now. We will continue to do that sort of work as we've heard from you. What are the things that are going to give us the most data? What do we absolutely have to do? What can we let go of? How do we make these assessments more manageable? Because we've got little people and a lot of assessing. And we know that we've got to reduce the number of assessments. We need to make sure they are high quality and that they are getting information that will allow you to instruct your students and not spend all your time assessing, which I know many of you feel has been the case this year. That is an area that we will work with you very hard on making sure we have in place. I'm also pleased to let you know that you are going to be receiving some guided reading texts. I think most of you are aware of this because we talked about this at the kindergarten grade level meeting, and those representatives went back and in many cases talked with their teams. But we have already placed the order. You'll be receiving 12 copies of 35 titles of benchmark guided reading texts. Most of you selected the CDE levels. A few of you selected to go just a little bit higher based on who your students are and what you already have for resources. But we know that having those slightly higher level texts is really important for you and for your students, and they are aligned primarily with your science and social studies content. Those are going to be coming in hopefully soon, and as soon as we get them in our hands at the ESC, we will get them to you. Math. There will be no change for core instructional materials in math, but we have heard from you that you would really like us to do some work clarifying the scope and sequence and how our standards align with our instructional materials. What we've heard is because the Minnesota standards are written as mastery standards, there's a lot in your instructional materials that's not part of your standards. You know it's important stuff, needs to be taught, but we're not really sure how much time and attention to give. So we're going to work on that so that you know what's most essential, what are things that you can spend a little bit of time on and move on, and what are the things that absolutely we need to make sure that we teach to mastery. In math, just like in reading, we'll be working on streamlining and revising those assessments, identifying those that really need to be done and those that are optional, and helping you make it manageable. Each of your buildings will also be receiving a set of texts called Math Reads. They come from Scholastic. They are designed for kindergarten, and you'll get 5 copies of 25 different titles. We've purchased them not to be used for guided reading, but to be used for shared reading and read-alouds. They're really not guided reading sort of books for little readers. Well, you might have a few of them, but for most kindergarten readers, that's not how they're designed. They're designed to infuse math vocabulary and academic language, and we've heard from our primary teachers that it would be great to have some additional resources that incorporate that kind of language, but that you really weren't sure what books to purchase and how they align with your math program. Before we send these out to you, we will bring people together to do that alignment work, to make sure that those texts are aligned with our instructional materials and our standards, so that you know when an appropriate time would be to use one of these as a read aloud, so that it not only provides great language modeling, but that you connect it to what you're doing in math. In the area of science, kindergarten will have one new kit. It's called Animals 2x2, and it's one of my all-time favorite FOSS kits. You will be trained into Animals 2x2 in the fall. So your 3 kits, not 4, but 3 kits for kindergarten will now be wood, FOSS kit, Animals 2x2 is a FOSS kit, and trees, which is still the district kit. All the reporting standards for science have been revised and aligned with the kits, and we'll be working on assessments in the same way. Any remaining gaps, like that remaining weather standard in kindergarten, we will figure out exactly how to address that and provide you with guidance around that, rather than giving you the standard and wishing you well. We know. 2013 and 14, everyone has new standards in social studies, but the good news is, while they're new, they're not really all that different. There are some differences, But we've had kindergarten teachers who have aligned our current materials with the standards. There are some new strands in social studies, but it's not going to mean all new materials. Any gaps that we have, we will address, and of course, we'll take care of reporting standards. We already have a draft, and the assessments. And remember, we'll only be giving a single mark for social studies on the report card rather than marking individual standards. In the areas of art, health, and technology literacy, we heard very clearly from our kindergarten and first grade teachers that there is just so much to be done in the day. How do you fit it all in? We're going to work on that. We know these things are important for our children. We know that you want to make sure that you are being true to the curriculum and what's expected, but that it's hard to know what's expected if we don't really clearly communicate what's expected. We're going to take a look at the standards, assessments, rubrics, make all that work, and not only instructional materials, but instructional expectations to help you make it work. We understand half-day kindergarten and full-day kindergarten, kindergarten in fee-based programs, kindergarten in non-fee-based programs. There's a lot going on in the kindergarten world in our district, and I have learned from many of you about the unique challenges in what you do. We are committed to working with you to figure this out. We absolutely have expectations of the standards that we are compelled to teach them by state law. But that doesn't mean that we can't find ways to make it manageable, to make it work really well for our kids, and to make it work well for our amazing kindergarten teachers. So in summary, here's what you can expect. The new Benchmark Writers Workshop, the core program, Animals 2x2, fabulous FOSS kit, and that scope and sequence that everyone has asked for reading language arts. Okay, maybe I exaggerate a little bit. I haven't heard from every single one of you, but I have heard from enough teachers K through 6 to confidently say just about everyone has asked for it. You can also expect revisions to your report cards, your assessments, and that work to align core instructional materials with standards, assessments, your supplemental materials, instructional expectations, fitting it all in the day. And finally, you can expect to get really great support from our team of staff development assessment specialists and all of us in the curriculum department. We are committed to your success. We are committed to the success of the children you have the privilege of teaching every day. We know that's why you're here. That's why we're here too. This is important work. What we believe that our collective commitment to improving and aligning all of this work is critical to our future success and that of our students. And that's why we are committed to working in partnership with you to get this work done so that you and your children have what you need in your classrooms. Thanks for listening to me squeak for these last few minutes. And as always, please feel free to give me a call if I can be of any assistance. Have a great rest of your workshop.